Picture this. You're standing on the porch of the house you spent 8 years paying for, the house you painted, repaired, and made into a home with your own two hands, and your own father is laughing in your face, saying, "You're homeless now, little girl." That's exactly where I found myself 6 months ago. While I was stationed halfway across the world in Okinawa, serving my country, my father and brother forged my signature, stole my house, and blew every penny on gambling debts. They thought I'd come home broken. They thought distance made me powerless. They didn't know I'd spent 5 months building a legal case that would destroy everything they thought they'd gotten away with. My name is Ingrid Myers. I'm 26 years old, a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps with 8 years of service. And this is the story of how my family tried to erase me, and how I made them regret it. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me tell you about 742 Maple Drive. It's not a mansion. It's not even close. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a porch that creaks when you step on the third board from the left. Sits on a quiet street in Jacksonville, North Carolina, about 15 minutes from Camp Lejeune. I bought it when I was 22 years old. Saved every penny from my enlistment bonus, every deployment stipend, every cent I didn't spend on things I didn't need. The VA loan made it possible. Zero down payment, 2.75% interest rate. I remember sitting at that closing table, signing my name over and over, thinking, this is mine. Nobody gave this to me. I earned it. The previous owners had let it go. Peeling paint, a roof that leaked in 3 places, a backyard that looked like a jungle. I didn't care. I saw potential. I spent my leave days with a paintbrush in my hand, rolling sage green onto the living room walls, because my mother always said green was the color of peace. I climbed up on that roof myself, YouTube tutorial playing on my phone, replacing shingles one by one. I planted tulips in the front yard, red ones, because they reminded me of the ones my mom used to grow before she got sick. On my bookshelf, I kept a framed photo from boot camp graduation day. 18 years old, scared out of my mind, but standing tall. That picture was the first thing I hung in my new house. The mortgage was $1,247 a month. I paid it myself, every single month. No help from anyone. I didn't know that the next time I walked through that door, everything I'd built would be gone. To understand what happened, you need to understand my family. My father, Harold Myers, spent 30 years as a plumber in Jacksonville. Decent work, decent pay, until a herniated disc forced him into early retirement. Now he lives off disability checks and bitterness. He's 58 years old and acts like the world owes him something. Then there's Derek, my brother. 32 years old, never held a job longer than 6 months. He's got excuses for everything: the economy, his bosses, his bad luck. What he doesn't mention is the gambling. Blackjack tables at the casino in Cherokee, poker games in back rooms, sports bets that never quite hit. My father worships him, always has. Derek's gonna make it big, he'd say. He just needs time. What about me? I was the daughter who disappeared at 18, the one who chose the Marines over staying home to take care of Dad after his surgery. In his eyes, I abandoned the family. I remember the day I left for boot camp. Derek was standing in the driveway next to his Mustang, the one Dad bought him for his 21st birthday. Cherry red, leather seats. Derek never paid for a single oil change. I drove myself to the recruiter's office in a rusted Honda Civic I'd bought with waitressing money. My mother died when I was 14. Ovarian cancer. After she was gone, there was no buffer between me and the reality of who my father was. He didn't hate me. He just forgot I existed. Unless he needed something. For years, I told myself distance would fix it, that if I just stayed away, the hurt would fade. I was wrong. In March, I got the orders. 6-month rotation to Camp Foster, Okinawa, Japan. Logistics unit. It was supposed to be routine, but there was a problem. My house. 6 months is a long time. Mail piles up, bills come due, pipes freeze in winter. I needed someone stateside who could handle the small stuff, pick up packages, pay the water bill if it slipped through autopay, call a repairman if the AC died. I thought about asking a friend from the unit, but most of them were deploying too. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was 82 and barely remembered my name. I didn't have many options. So I called my father. He sounded almost touched. "You're asking me for help?" Like I'd finally admitted I needed him. I drove up to his apartment, a cramped two-bedroom he'd rented after selling the family house, with a document I'd printed from a legal website. Limited power of attorney. I'd read every word 3 times. "This lets you receive mail, pay utility bills from my checking account, and call maintenance companies if something breaks," I explained. "That's it, nothing else." He nodded like he understood. I watched him sign it. I signed it. We got it notarized at the UPS store down the street. Before I left, I took a picture of every page and emailed it to myself. Just a habit from the military. Document everything. I didn't think I'd actually need it. "Thanks, Dad," I said at the door. "I'll call you every couple weeks." He hugged me, first time in years. "Don't worry about a thing," he said. "Family takes care of family." I believed him. Okinawa was beautiful. Humid and exhausting, but beautiful. Turquoise water, limestone cliffs, sunsets that turned the sky pink and orange like something from a painting. I worked night shifts mostly, processing supply requests, tracking inventory, making sure equipment got where it needed to go. Boring work, important work, the kind of work that keeps the machine running. I kept a photo of my house on my desk, just a snapshot I'd taken before I left. The front porch, the tulips starting to bloom, the sage green curtains I'd hung in the living room window. When the nights got long, I'd look at it and remind myself what I was working toward. Every 2 weeks, I'd video call Dad. The conversations were short, surface level. "Everything's fine. Bills are paid. Nothing to report." He never asked about my work. I never pushed. I sent money home every month, not because he asked, because I'd set up automatic transfers for the mortgage and utilities. My paycheck went into my Jacksonville account, and the bills paid themselves. I just needed someone there for emergencies. Sergeant Tara Collins was one of the few people I'd call a real friend. We'd served together at Lejeune before she got transferred to a different unit on base. Her husband, Marcus, worked at the Onslow County Register of Deeds, basically the office that tracks who owns what property in the county. Tara and I texted sometimes. Memes mostly, complaints about the food, normal stuff. Month 5, 3 a.m. local time. I was halfway through a supply audit when my phone buzzed. A text from Tara. 3 words. "Call me, now." My hands were shaking before I even dialed. Tara picked up on the first ring. "Ingrid." Her voice was tight. "Wrong. I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it." "What happened?" "Marcus was running routine deed transfers today. Your name popped up." She paused. "Your name was removed from your property 2 weeks ago." I heard the words, but they didn't make sense. Removed? That's not how property works. You can't just remove someone. There has to be a mistake. "There's no mistake. The deed was transferred. Someone sold your house, Ingrid. It's in someone else's name now." I sat down on my bunk because my legs stopped working. "Who?" "The new owners are Michael and Sarah Patterson. Young couple. They paid $187,000. Another pause. "The seller of record is Harold Myers, acting under power of attorney for Ingrid E. Myers." My father. I couldn't breathe. "Ingrid? You still there?" "The money," I managed. "Where did the money go?" "I don't know. That's not in the deed records." I hung up, opened my banking app, scrolled through transactions, deposits, transfers. Nothing. No $187,000. No $100,000. No $10,000. The last deposit was my regular paycheck. The last withdrawal was the mortgage auto payment, which would now bounce because there was no mortgage anymore, because I didn't own the house anymore. I called my father. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. I sat in the dark, thousands of miles from home, and I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened my laptop and typed into the search bar, SKRA Property Protection Military. The next morning, I walked into the JAG office at Camp Foster. Judge Advocate General, the military's legal branch. I'd never needed them before. Never thought I would. Captain Marcus Webb was assigned to my case. Early 30s, black, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of calm that comes from seeing the worst and learning to stay steady anyway. He listened without interrupting while I explained everything. The house, the POA, the call from Tara. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. Do you have a copy of the power of attorney you signed? I scanned it before I left. It's in my email. Pull it up. I handed him my phone. He read slowly, scrolling, nodding. Sergeant Myers, this is a limited power of attorney. It explicitly authorizes your father to receive mail, pay bills from a designated account, and coordinate minor home repairs. He looked up. It does not authorize the sale of real property. So he couldn't legally sell my house. No, he couldn't. Webb set the phone down. But it gets worse. Have you heard of the Service Members Civil Relief Act? I had, vaguely. Something about protections for deployed soldiers. SKRA provides legal protections for active duty military, Webb explained. Among other things, it makes it extremely difficult, almost impossible, for anyone to sell, foreclose on, or transfer a service member's property without their explicit written consent. Your father didn't just exceed the POA. He may have violated federal law. May have? There's one more piece we need to check. He picked up his desk phone. I'm going to request a copy of the POA that was used to execute the sale, because if it's different from what you signed. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. It took 4 days. 4 days of waiting while Captain Webb worked the phones. 4 days of night shifts where I couldn't focus, of meals I couldn't taste, of staring at my phone like it might explode. On day 5, Webb called me back into his office. We got it, he said. His voice was strange, hard. He slid 2 documents across the desk. On the left, my limited power of attorney. The one I'd signed. The one that gave my father permission to pick up my mail. On the right, a general power of attorney. Broad, sweeping language. Full authority to sell, transfer, mortgage, or otherwise dispose of any and all real property owned by principal. My name at the bottom. But it wasn't my handwriting. I stared at the signature. It was close. Someone had practiced, but it was wrong. I always loop my G's. This signature had flat, angular letters. I always include my middle initial, the E between Ingrid and Myers. This signature had a gap where the E should be. This isn't my signature, I said. I know. Webb's jaw was tight. I had our forensic document specialist take a look. She compared it to your official service records. The handwriting is inconsistent with your known samples. So, who? She also compared it to DMV records for Derek Myers. He paused. It's a match. My brother. Derek forged my signature, created a fake document that gave my father complete control over my house, and my father used it to sell everything I owned. What do we do now? Webb pulled out a legal pad. Now, we build a case. Forgery of a legal document connected to a VA-backed property is a federal felony, and violating SKRA adds another layer. He looked at me. They're not getting away with this. Follow the money. That's what Captain Webb said. He helped me file requests with the escrow company that handled the sale. Under military legal authorization, they had to respond within 10 business days. They responded in 7. I sat in Webb's office while he walked me through the documents. The sale closed for $187,000. Standard closing costs, real estate commission, the usual fees. Net proceeds were approximately $172,000. He flipped a page. All of it was wired to an account in Harold Meyer's name. Where is it now? Webb didn't answer right away. That's how I knew it was bad. Bank records show a series of withdrawals and transfers over a 3-week period. $35,000 to something called Atlantic City Holdings, which, based on my research, is a payment processing company for casino debts. $42,000 to a similar company in Charlotte. $28,000 to an individual named Vincent Rossi, who appears to be a private loan collector. A loan shark. I didn't say that. He looked at me. But yes, probably. The numbers kept coming. Rent payments for Derek's apartment, a $4,800 charge at a luxury car repair shop, probably the Mustang, restaurant bills, hotel rooms. Bottom line, Webb said. Of the $172,000 net proceeds, approximately $127,000 is gone. Harold Meyer's current account balance is around $45,000. I did the math. 8 years of service. 8 years of saving every dollar, sacrificing every comfort, building something real. Gone in 3 weeks, turned into poker chips and blackjack bets, and payments to men who threatened to break kneecaps. They gambled away my house, I said. Yes. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at nothing. What's next? Next, we send a cease and desist, and we contact the VA. The cease and desist letter was 6 pages long. Captain Webb drafted it himself. Military letterhead, JAG office seal. The kind of document that makes people stop laughing and start sweating. It went to 4 parties. Harold Myers, Derek Myers, the notary public who witnessed the fraudulent POA, and the Pattersons, the couple who'd unknowingly bought a house that wasn't legally for sale, through their attorney. The letter spelled out everything: the limited POA versus the forged general POA, the SQRA violation, the fraudulent transfer of title. It demanded an immediate halt to any further transactions involving the property and gave all parties 14 days to respond. But that wasn't enough. Webb wanted insurance. He connected me with Linda Hoffman from the VA's Regional Loan Center in Roanoke. She handled cases involving VA loan violations, and she'd seen everything. "This is bad," she said over the video call, her face grim on my laptop screen. "VA loans have specific covenants. Any sale or transfer of the property has to be approved by our office. We have no record of any request, no authorization, no nothing." So the sale is invalid? Under VA covenant, yes. The transaction was executed without required approval. It's legally deficient. She typed something off-screen. "I'm putting this in writing today. Official VA notification that the sale violates loan covenants and should be considered null and void pending resolution." I exhaled. Finally, something solid. "What happens if they don't comply?" I asked. Linda looked directly at the camera. "Then we stop asking politely. Forgery, wire fraud, SQRA violation, that's federal territory. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Eastern North Carolina doesn't mess around." I saved the email she sent. Then I saved it again, just in case. 14 days. That's how long they had to respond to the cease and desist. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, nothing. By day 7, I'd stopped expecting anything. My father wasn't going to respond to letters. He probably thought I was bluffing. A girl playing soldier, waving around papers that didn't mean anything. Day 8 changed my mind. A text from Derek. "Stop making this a big deal. It's just a house. You can buy another one." It's not it's. And he spelled another wrong the first time before autocorrect fixed it. Some things never change. I didn't respond. Day 10. My father called. I answered. I don't know why. "Ingrid?" His voice was that same mixture of condescension and forced patience I remembered from childhood. "We need to talk about this situation." Situation? This legal business. You're overreacting. We're family. We don't need lawyers involved. You sold my house. I did what I had to do. Derek was in trouble, real trouble. People were threatening him. So you stole from me. Silence. Then, it's not stealing when it's family. That's not how family works. Family doesn't forge signatures, Dad. His voice hardened. You were always like this, always thinking you're better than everyone else just because you put on a uniform. You think the Marines make you special? You're still my daughter. You'll do what I say. No, I won't. He hung up. Day 14. The deadline came and went. No formal response from Harold. No response from Derek. No response from the notary. The Pattersons' lawyer did respond, a panicked letter asking for more information about the allegations and expressing his client's desire to resolve the matter. They were scared. My father was not. He thought he'd already won. The Pattersons didn't deserve this. I learned about them through their attorney's response letter. Michael Patterson, 30 years old, worked as an electrician for a commercial contractor in Wilmington. Sarah Patterson, 29, was a kindergarten teacher at an elementary school in Jacksonville. They'd been married for 3 years, saving every penny for a down payment on their first home. When they found 742 Maple Drive, they thought it was perfect. 3 bedrooms, room for the baby Sarah was carrying, 4 months along, a nice yard, a quiet neighborhood, close enough to Camp Lejeune that Michael could pick up side work on base. They paid $187,000. Every dollar they had, plus a mortgage they'd stretched to afford. They'd already painted the nursery yellow. They had no idea the seller wasn't authorized to sell. They had no idea the property still had a VA loan attached. They had no idea their dream home was built on fraud. When they got the cease and desist letter, they panicked. Sarah called their attorney crying. Michael didn't sleep for 3 days. Through their lawyer, they reached out to Captain Webb's office. "We're not trying to fight her," Michael's message said. "We just don't understand what's happening. We did everything right. We used a licensed real estate agent. We went through escrow. How is this possible?" I read that message and felt something twist in my chest. They weren't the enemy. They were collateral damage. But their presence didn't change the facts. The sale was fraudulent. The house was mine. And somewhere in all of this, there had to be a solution that didn't leave everyone ruined. That was a problem for later. Right now, I had a flight to catch. While I was waiting for my deployment to end, my father was running a smear campaign. I heard about it from Tara. She'd seen posts in a local Jacksonville Facebook group, the kind of neighborhood page where people complain about parking and share pictures of suspicious vans. Harold had been telling people his version of events. According to him, I was an ungrateful daughter who abandoned my family to play soldier. I never visited, I never called. I didn't care when he was injured, and now I was suing my own father over a real estate misunderstanding. Derek was right there backing him up, commenting on posts, adding details, making me sound like a greedy, selfish woman who valued money over blood. "She always thought she was better than us," one of Derek's comments read. "The military went to her head. Sad what people will do for money." People were believing it. Comments piled up. "That's terrible. What kind of daughter does that? Family should stay out of courts. She should be ashamed." A woman I'd gone to high school with messaged me directly. "Hey, I saw the stuff about your dad on Facebook. Is it true you're suing him? That's really sad." I didn't respond. Part of me wanted to scream the truth, to post the forged documents, the bank records, the VA letter, to prove to everyone what actually happened. But Captain Webb had warned me. Anything public could be used against me. Keep it quiet. Let the legal process work. So I stayed silent. I let them think I was the villain. And I counted the days until I could look my father in the face and show him exactly who he was dealing with. 3 days before my flight home, Harold requested a video call. I almost ignored it. But something made me accept. His face filled my screen, older than I remembered, more tired, but with the same stubborn set to his jaw. Derek was behind him, smirking. Ingrid. My father's voice was different now. Not angry. Careful. I think we need to settle this before you come home. There's nothing to settle. Yes, there is. He leaned forward. I've talked to a lawyer. A real one, not some military kid playing dress-up. He says your case isn't as strong as you think. I didn't blink. Drop this, he continued. Come home, we'll work something out. Maybe I can scrape together some money, pay you back over time. But if you keep pushing... He paused, making sure I was listening. If you keep pushing, you're not my daughter anymore. I'll cut you off completely. No contact, no family, nothing. Derek leaned in. You really want to be alone, Ingrid? You really want to throw away your whole family over a house? I let the silence stretch. I didn't throw away anything, I said finally. You did. When you forged my signature, when you stole my savings, when you gambled away 8 years of my work. I was protecting Derek. You were protecting yourself. I cut him off. Because you're scared of what happens if you don't clean up his messes. You've been scared your whole life. Harold's face went red. If you step foot in that courtroom, then I'll see you there. I ended the call. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from certainty. There was no saving this relationship. There never had been. Now, there was only justice. 18 hours, 3 connecting flights, an ocean between who I was and who I was about to become. I packed light, laptop, legal files, my dress blues, pressed and perfect, because this wasn't a family reunion, it was a reckoning. Tara met me at the Jacksonville airport. She was standing by her truck, arms crossed, watching me walk out of the terminal. She didn't say anything, just pulled me into a hug that lasted longer than either of us expected. You look like hell, she said when she finally let go. Thanks. How much sleep did you get on the flight? Some. Liar. She took my duffel bag and threw it in the back. You're staying at my place. Marcus is making dinner. You're going to eat, shower, and pretend to be a human being for one night. Tomorrow, you can be a Marine again. I didn't argue. At Tara's house, I spread the files across her dining room table. The POA comparison, the forensic analysis, the VA letter, the bank records. Everything Webb and I had built over 5 months. Marcus looked it over while I picked at the lasagna he'd made. This is solid, he said. Really solid. Solid enough? He met my eyes. Your father and brother committed federal fraud. On paper, there's no question. The only unknown is how it plays out in the room tomorrow. Tomorrow. The meeting at the real estate attorney's office. All parties present. The Pattersons, their lawyer, my father, my brother, and me. My phone buzzed. Captain Webb. The meeting is confirmed, 10 a.m. I'll be there an hour early to set up. See you then. I hung up. Tomorrow, everything changed. One way or another. Okay. Before we get to what happened at that meeting, I want to pause for a second. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, your family, your partner, anyone, drop a comment below and let me know. I read every single one, and honestly, your stories remind me I'm not alone in this. Also, if you're finding this helpful or you just want to see what happens next, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss how this ends. Now, let's keep going. The morning of the meeting, I made a decision. I drove to 742 Maple Drive. I told myself it was just to see it, to remind myself what I was fighting for. But that was a lie. Some part of me knew they might be there. Some part of me wanted them to be. I parked across the street. The tulips I'd planted were still there, red against the green grass. The porch still creaked. I could hear it from the car. Someone had changed the curtains to white, and standing on that porch, like they owned the place, because apparently they thought they did, were my father and my brother. Harold saw my car first. His eyes went wide, then narrow. Then he smiled. That smile, I got out of the car. I was in my dress blues, pressed, perfect, every medal in place. I'd earned every one of them. I walked across the street like I was walking into enemy territory, because I was. Well, well, Harold clapped slowly. The prodigal daughter returns. Derek laughed. Nice uniform. Did they give you that for paperwork duty? I stopped at the edge of the driveway, close enough to see their faces clearly, far enough to keep my control. You're homeless now, little girl, Harold said, spreading his arms wide. How's it feel? 8 years in the Marines and you can't even keep a roof over your head. Derek doubled over laughing. I didn't move. What's so funny? Harold's smile faltered. What are you grinning at? I was grinning? I hadn't realized. But yes, I was. See you at the meeting, I said, and I walked back to my car. Behind me, Derek's laughter had stopped. Good. They followed me. I was barely to my car when Derek jogged up, grabbing the door before I could close it. What was that? He demanded. What's with the smile? You think you're going to win this? I looked at his hand on my door, then at him. Remove your hand. He didn't. You've got nothing, he said. Dad talked to a lawyer, a real one. All that military crap doesn't mean anything. It's your word against ours. Behind him, Harold was walking over, slower, stiffer, but with the same arrogance. You think we're scared of some little cease and desist letter? Harold called out. I've lived in this town for 30 years. People know me. They trust me. Who are you? Some girl who ran off and never looked back. Derek leaned closer, dropping his voice. You were always jealous. Always angry that Dad loved me more. That's what this is about. You can't stand that I matter and you don't. I kept my voice level. You matter so much that you had to forge my signature to pay off your gambling debts. His eyes flickered, just for a second. Fear. That's not... Derek. I said his name like it was nothing. Like he was nothing. I have forensic handwriting analysis linking the forged POA to your DMV signature. I have VA documentation that the sale was never approved. I have bank records showing exactly where the money went. He stepped back. You're bluffing. Then call it. I closed my car door. See you at 10. I drove away. In my rearview mirror, I watched them standing in the street, smaller and smaller, until they disappeared entirely. They still thought this was about the house. It wasn't. It was about who I was willing to become to protect what I'd built. Wait, let me clarify the timeline. The confrontation at the house happened around 7 a.m. The meeting wasn't until 10 a.m. Those 3 hours in between felt like 3 years. I went back to Tara's place, showered, changed nothing. I was staying in my dress blues, made coffee I didn't drink, stared at walls I didn't see. Around 8:30, I spread the files across Tara's table one more time. Not because I needed to review them. I'd memorized every word. But the ritual of touching the pages, organizing them, checking their order, it steadied me. Limited POA. The real one. My signature. General POA. The fake one. Derek's forgery. Forensic handwriting analysis. Side-by-side comparisons. VA notification. Official letterhead. Transaction null and void. Bank records. Wire transfers. Casino payments. Cease and desist letter. Proof of delivery. Tara watched me from the kitchen doorway. You've got this, she said. I know. Then why do you look like you're about to throw up? I stopped arranging papers, looked at her. Because they're still my family. The word caught in my throat. Some part of me still wants them to apologize, to admit they were wrong, to be the people I needed them to be. Tara was quiet for a moment. They're not going to be those people. I know. Then stop wanting it. She walked over, put her hands on my shoulders. You can grieve who they should have been later. Right now, you need to be a Marine, clear-headed, focused, unstoppable. I took a breath. Unstoppable. That's right. I packed the files into my leather briefcase, the one nice thing I'd bought myself after making sergeant. 9:15 a.m. Time to go. Captain Webb was already at the coffee shop across from the attorney's office when I arrived. He was in his service alphas, the Marine equivalent of a business suit, impeccable and intimidating. 2 cups of coffee sat on the table, one untouched. "That one's yours," he said as I sat down. "You look ready." "I feel ready." "Good." He slid a tablet across the table. "Linda Hoffman will be joining via video conference. She's patched into the meeting room. Here's what we're going to do." He laid out the strategy. First, I would stay silent. Let Webb do the talking until it was time for me to present evidence directly. Second, we'd lead with the POA comparison. Visual, undeniable. Let them try to explain away the obvious forgery. Third, Linda would confirm the VA covenant violation on the record. Official, documented, not up for debate. Fourth, we'd present the bank records, show exactly where the money went. Fifth, and only if necessary, we'd outline the criminal implications: forgery, wire fraud, SQRA violation, federal prison. "The goal isn't to threaten," Webb said. "The goal is to present facts so overwhelming that there's no room for argument. We want them to understand that their only options are compliance or prosecution." "And the Pattersons?" "Innocent buyers. We make that clear. They're victims too. The solution is to void the sale, return the property to you, and have Harold and Derek reimburse the Pattersons fully." "Can they even do that? Most of the money is gone." Webb's expression didn't change. "That's their problem to solve, not yours." My phone buzzed. 9:55. "Let's go," I said. We walked across the street together. 2 Marines, 1 mission, no mercy. The law office of Mitchell and Associates sat in a converted Victorian house downtown. Hardwood floors, crown molding, the kind of quiet money that whispers instead of shouts. Attorney Gregory Mitchell was the neutral party, a real estate specialist hired to mediate. He met us at the door, shook hands, led us to a conference room with a long mahogany table and leather chairs. Webb and I took positions on one side. The laptop for Linda's video feed was set up at the head of the table. 9:58 a.m. The Pattersons arrived. Michael was tall, broad-shouldered, with the calloused hands of a working man. Sarah was small, visibly pregnant, clutching her husband's arm like she was afraid of what was coming. Their attorney, a nervous young man named Thompson, trailed behind them. Sarah looked at me. I saw fear in her eyes, but also something else: curiosity, like she was trying to understand who I was and how we'd ended up on opposite sides of a table. 10:04 a.m. My father and brother arrived. Late. Of course. Harold walked in like he owned the place, chest puffed out, wearing a rumpled button-down shirt that had seen better decades. Derek followed in jeans and a t-shirt, smirking, radiating a confidence he hadn't earned. Then Harold saw Captain Webb's uniform, the JAG insignia, the oak leaves of a captain. The smirk faded. Derek leaned over, whispered something to Harold. Harold shook his head slightly. They sat down across from me. For the first time in my life, my father couldn't meet my eyes. Attorney Mitchell cleared his throat. "Let's begin." Linda Hoffman's face appeared on the laptop screen. The pieces were in place. Now, the truth. Attorney Mitchell started with the basics. "We're here to discuss the disputed property at 742 Maple Drive," he said. "All parties with a claim or interest are present. Mr. Myers, you represented yourself as having authority to sell the property. Sergeant Myers contests that authority. The Pattersons purchased the property in good faith. Let's hear from each side." Harold went first. He didn't have a lawyer, too arrogant to think he needed one. "This is simple," he said. "My daughter gave me power of attorney before she went overseas. I used that authority to sell the house. It was an emergency. Derek owed money to dangerous people. I did what any father would do." Derek nodded vigorously. "Exactly. She's overreacting." This is a family matter. Attorney Mitchell looked at me. Sergeant Myers? I stayed silent. Webb spoke instead. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Before we proceed, I'd like to introduce myself as Captain Marcus Webb, Judge Advocate General's Corps, currently assigned to Camp Foster, Okinawa. I'm representing Sergeant Myers in this matter. Harold's jaw tightened. I'd also like to note that Ms. Linda Hoffman of the VA Regional Loan Center is joining us remotely and will provide official VA testimony regarding the property's loan covenant. Linda nodded on screen. Now, Webb opened his briefcase. Mr. Myers claims he had authority to sell the property. Let's examine that claim. He pulled out 2 documents. I have here 2 powers of attorney. One is a limited power of attorney signed by Sergeant Myers, authorizing only mail receipt, bill payment, and minor maintenance. The other is a general power of attorney used to execute the sale. He slid them across the table. These are not the same document, and the signature on the general POA is not Sergeant Myers's handwriting. The room went very quiet. Webb placed the documents side by side, positioning them so everyone at the table could see. On the left, he said, the limited POA signed by Sergeant Myers before her deployment. On the right, the general POA presented to the escrow company. He pulled out a 3rd document. This is a forensic handwriting analysis conducted by the U.S. military's Document Examination Unit. The analysis confirms that the signature on the general POA is inconsistent with Sergeant Myers's known handwriting samples from her service records. Harold's face was gray. Derek had stopped smirking. Furthermore, Webb continued, the analysis found that the signature is consistent with samples from Derek Myers's DMV records. The Patterson's attorney leaned forward. Are you saying? I'm saying the general POA was forged. Derek Myers signed his sister's name to a fraudulent document, which Harold Myers then used to sell property that wasn't his to sell. Harold stood up. This is ridiculous. I'm her father. I have every right. Sit down, Mr. Myers. The voice came from the screen. Linda Hoffman. I represent the Department of Veterans Affairs, she said. Sergeant Myers purchased the property using a VA-backed loan. Under the terms of that loan, any sale or transfer of property requires prior approval from our office. She paused. We have no record of any request, any authorization, or any communication regarding this sale. The transaction was executed in violation of federal VA loan covenants. She looked directly into the camera. Under VA regulation, this sale is null and void. Sarah Patterson gasped. Her hand went to her belly. Michael's face crumpled. But we paid. You paid for a fraudulent transaction, Linda said, not unkindly. You're victims too, but the law is clear. Derek finally spoke, his voice cracking. This is all fake. It's not, I said. Everyone looked at me. And I have more. I stood up. I'd been silent long enough. Everyone look at these signatures. I pointed to the documents Webb had laid out. The real one, my signature, has a loop on the G. I always write it that way. It's been in my handwriting since I was 12 years old. I tapped the forged POA. This G is flat, angular, no loop, because whoever wrote this never watched me sign my name. Derek shifted in his chair. Also, I always sign my full name, Ingrid E. Myers. The E is for Elizabeth, my mother's name. I've never signed a legal document without it. I pointed to the forgery. No E, just a gap, because the person who wrote this didn't know. I looked at my brother. But you should have known, Derek. You grew up in the same house as me. You watched me sign birthday cards, permission slips, school forms. How did you not know how I sign my name? His face went white. I didn't. The forensic analysis matched your handwriting. Not Dad's, yours. You forged my signature on a federal document connected to a VA loan. I let that sink in. That's a felony. Up to 10 years in federal prison. Up to $250,000 in fines. Harold grabbed Derek's arm. Don't say anything. Too late. Webb pulled out another document. We also have bank records showing the $187,000 from the sale was deposited into Harold Meyer's account and subsequently transferred to casino debt collection agencies, private loan collectors, and personal expenses. He slid the paper to the center of the table. Mr. Myers, Mr. Myers. He addressed both of them with the same name, the same disgust. You didn't just steal from your daughter, you gambled away her life savings. The room was silent. Attorney Mitchell removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Harold crumbled. I'd never seen it happen before, never seen my father's arrogance crack open and reveal the weakness underneath. But watching him now, slumped in his chair, hands trembling, I understood something. He'd never been strong. He'd just never been challenged. You don't understand, he said, his voice breaking. Derek was going to get hurt. These people, they weren't the kind you can negotiate with. They threatened to break his legs. They knew where I lived. Then you should have called the police, I said. The police? He laughed bitterly. And tell them what? That my son owes money to loan sharks? They'd arrest Derek, not the criminals. So instead you stole from me. He flinched like I'd hit him. I thought... He stopped, started again. I thought I could fix it. Sell the house, pay off Derek's debts, and then... I don't know. Explain it to you later. Make you understand. Make me understand that you valued his gambling addiction more than 8 years of my work? That's exactly what it is. I kept my voice level, steady. I wouldn't give him my anger. He hadn't earned it. You had options. You could have called me, told me the truth, asked for help, but you didn't. Because you knew I'd say no, and you didn't care. Derek tried to interrupt. You always... Be quiet, Derek. The words came out sharp enough to cut. You forged my name. You're not a victim. You're not even a participant in this conversation anymore. He shut his mouth. Harold looked at me with something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Not love, not even regret. Fear. What happens now? He whispered. I turned to Captain Webb. Tell him. Before Webb could speak, Sarah Patterson stood up. Her chair scraped against the hardwood floor. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. Can I say something? Attorney Mitchell nodded. She looked at me, really looked at me. Not with the fear I'd seen earlier, but with something else. Recognition. We didn't know, she said. I swear to God, we didn't know. We went through a real estate agent. Everything was official. We did title searches, inspections, all of it. I believe you. Her eyes widened. She hadn't expected that. I know you're not the bad guys here, I continued. You bought a house. You were building a life. You didn't ask for any of this. Michael Patterson spoke up. But we're living in your house. The nursery. His voice broke. We painted it yellow. Sarah's mom gave us a crib. Sarah put her hand on his arm. Then she turned to my father. You sold us a home that wasn't yours to sell, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. We gave you every dollar we had, and you knew. You knew it was wrong, and you did it anyway. Harold wouldn't look at her. We're not fighting Sergeant Myers, Sarah said to Attorney Mitchell. We understand the house isn't legally ours. She touched her belly. We just need to be okay. I spoke before I could second-guess myself. I'll give you 60 days to find somewhere new, not 30, 60. And if there's anything I can do to help, veteran networks, housing resources, I'll make calls. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Why would you do that? Because I know what it feels like to lose your home, and I won't be the one who does that to you. Attorney Mitchell cleared his throat. The room fell silent. Even Derek, who had been twitching nervously in his chair, went still. Based on the evidence presented, Mitchell began, reading from notes he'd been making, it is the conclusion of this mediation that the sale of property at 742 Maple Drive was executed fraudulently and in violation of both the terms of the original power of attorney and federal VA loan covenants. Harold's head dropped. The sale is hereby recommended for judicial nullification. Title should revert to the original owner, Sergeant Ingrid E. Myers. I felt the words land, but I didn't let myself react, not yet. Regarding restitution, Mitchell continued, Harold and Derek Myers are jointly liable for the $187,000 paid by the Pattersons, plus reasonable legal fees and damages, estimated at $15,000 to $20,000. I don't have that money, Harold said weakly. That's not Sergeant Myers' concern, Mitchell replied. You have 90 days to establish a repayment plan. Failure to do so will result in civil judgment against your assets, and the case file will be forwarded to the U.S. Attorney's Office for potential criminal prosecution. He turned to Derek. Mr. Derek Myers, the evidence of document forgery is substantial. The matter will be referred to federal investigators. You should retain criminal defense counsel immediately. Derek looked like he was going to be sick. Finally, Mitchell said, Ms. Hoffman, can you confirm the VA's position? Linda's face on the screen was impassive. Confirmed. The VA considers this matter closed in favor of Sergeant Myers. We will cooperate fully with any criminal investigation. Mitchell set down his pen. I think we're done here. 90 days, $187,000, or federal prison. I looked at my father. He couldn't look back. The meeting ended in silence. Harold stood up slowly, like a man carrying weights on his shoulders. He walked toward the door without looking at anyone. Not me, not Derek, not even Attorney Mitchell. Derek followed, but stopped at the threshold. He turned around. You happy now? His voice cracked with something between rage and despair. You destroyed this family. I met his eyes. No, Derek. You destroyed this family when you forged my name. I'm just holding up the mirror. He stared at me for a long moment. I thought he might scream, might lunge, might do something stupid enough to add assault charges to his list. But instead, he just shook his head. You're cold, he said. You were always cold. Then he left. Harold was already down the hallway. He didn't look back. He didn't say goodbye. 26 years his daughter, and he walked away without a word. I stood in the conference room, watching the empty doorway, and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no grief, just stillness. Sarah Patterson approached me hesitantly. Sergeant Myers? I turned. The house, she said softly. Before we moved in, I found these red tulips in the front yard. They were beautiful. I watered them every day. She paused. I didn't know they were yours. I smiled, the first real smile in weeks. Take a cutting before you go, I said. Plant them wherever you land next. They're survivors. They'll bloom anywhere. Sarah's eyes welled up. She reached out and squeezed my hand. Thank you, she whispered, for being kinder than you had to be. She rejoined Michael, and they walked out together, not broken, just changed. Captain Webb appeared beside me. You did good, Sergeant. I know, but I didn't feel good. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. All right, we're getting close to the end now, and honestly, this next part still gets to me. If you've made it this far, you're officially part of this journey with me. I'd love to know, would you have done the same thing in my situation? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and share this video with someone who needs to hear that standing up for yourself is always worth it. Let's finish this together. 3 days after the meeting, I invited the Pattersons for coffee. We met at a small cafe near the waterfront. Neutral territory, no lawyers, no documents. Just 3 people trying to find a way forward. Michael came straight from work, sawdust still on his boots. Sarah wore a sundress that stretched over her growing belly. They looked exhausted. They looked scared. I want you to know something, I said once we sat down. I don't blame you, not for any of this. Michael shook his head. We should have checked more carefully. You did everything right. You used a real estate agent. You went through escrow. You got title insurance. I leaned forward. The system failed you. My father failed you. But you didn't do anything wrong. Sarah's shoulders dropped. some tension she'd been carrying since that conference room finally released. I've been thinking, I continued, about how to make this work. Here's what I'm proposing. I laid it out. 60 days, not 30. I'd connected with a veteran housing organization that helped military families find temporary rentals. Marcus had contacts there from his work at the Register of Deeds. They'd found two options already, both within the Pattersons' budget. Once my father makes restitution, or once the court orders it, you'll get every dollar back, I said, including what you spent on lawyers. Michael stared at his coffee. Why are you doing this? You'd be within your rights to just throw us out. Because I know what it's like to lose everything overnight, to have the ground pulled out from under you. I met his eyes. I won't do that to someone else. Especially not. I looked at Sarah's belly. Not when you're building something new. Sarah reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. You're nothing like they said you were. No, I agreed. I'm not. 2 weeks later, Captain Webb called. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of North Carolina has opened an official investigation. I was sitting on Tara's porch, watching the sunset. The phone felt heavy in my hand. Tell me. They're looking at 3 charges. First, forgery of a legal document connected to federally backed property. That's a Class D felony. Second, wire fraud. The electronic transfer of funds from the fraudulent sale crosses state lines, which makes it federal jurisdiction. Third, conspiracy to commit fraud, since there's evidence both Harold and Derek planned this together. I'd known it was coming, but hearing it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. What are they facing? Derek is in serious trouble. The forgery charge alone carries 5 to 10 years. Wire fraud adds another potential 5. If convicted on all counts, he's looking at 10 to 15 in federal prison. Webb paused. Harold is complicated. He used the forged document, but he didn't create it. His exposure is probably 2 to 5 years, or possibly a plea deal for probation and restitution. Have they been contacted? Yesterday. Both were served with subpoenas. Derek apparently tried to blame Harold. Harold tried to blame Derek. A hint of dark amusement entered Webb's voice. The prosecutor said it was the fastest mutual self-incrimination he'd ever seen. I should have felt something. Triumph, satisfaction, closure. Instead, I felt hollow. Ingrid? Webb's voice softened. You okay? I don't know. I watched the last sliver of sun disappear below the horizon. I thought this would feel like victory, but they're still my family. Or they were. Families aren't always what we need them to be. No, I agreed. They're not. Money has a way of clarifying things. Within a month of the federal investigation announcement, Harold and Derek's lawyer, they'd finally gotten one, a public defender who looked perpetually exhausted, reached out with a settlement proposal. They wanted to avoid prison. They were willing to pay. Here's what they put together. Derek's Mustang. The cherry red one Dad had bought him for his 21st birthday. They sold it for $12,000. Derek didn't even fight it. First time in his life he gave up something without whining. Harold's house. The 2-bedroom apartment where he'd been living since retirement was actually a condo he owned outright. On the market, $145,000. That left $30,000 outstanding. Derek agreed to a payment plan, $500 a month for 5 years, garnished directly from whatever wages he managed to earn. Given his work history, that number might as well have been $1 million. The Pattersons got their money back, all of it, $187,000 plus $8,000 in legal fees. Their attorney called to confirm the wire transfer. Sarah cried on the phone. Harold had to move into a rental apartment. First time in his life he didn't own property. First time in his life he had to answer to a landlord, pay rent on time, follow someone else's rules. Derek had to get a job, a real one. No more waiting for his break. No more poker games in back rooms. His first paycheck went directly to the restitution fund. And me? I didn't take a cent from either of them. I didn't want their money. I wanted them to understand what it costs to steal from someone who had nothing but what she built with her own hands. The money they paid went to the Pattersons. The house came back to me. That was enough. 6 months after the meeting at Attorney Mitchell's office, the federal court handed down its verdict. Derek Michael Myers, guilty on 2 counts: forgery of a federal document and conspiracy to commit fraud. Sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, with 18 months to be served and the remainder suspended pending good behavior and continued restitution payments. Harold Eugene Myers, guilty on 1 count: fraudulent use of a forged document. Sentenced to 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and a permanent restriction prohibiting him from serving as power of attorney or fiduciary for any person. I didn't attend the sentencing. Captain Webb offered to fly me to the courthouse, but I declined. I'd already said everything I needed to say in documents, in testimony, in the evidence that spoke for itself. I didn't need to watch my father and brother walk out of a federal courtroom in handcuffs to know that justice had been done. Webb called me afterward. "Derek is being processed at FCI Butner," he said. "Medium security. He'll be eligible for early release in about 14 months if he behaves." And Harold? Checking in with the probation officer monthly, doing his community service at a highway cleanup crew. Webb paused. The judge told him it was one of the most egregious cases of family betrayal he'd ever presided over. I sat with that for a moment. "I don't feel sorry for them," I said finally. "You shouldn't. But I don't feel happy either." Webb was quiet for a moment. Then, "That's probably the healthiest response you could have. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming what was yours. You did that. The rest is just aftermath." Aftermath. That's exactly what it was. The day I walked back into 742 Maple Drive, I almost didn't recognize it. The Pattersons had been kind. They'd cleaned before they left. Floors swept, counters wiped, windows washed. But the house was empty now. Bare walls, bare rooms. Nothing left but the bones of what I'd built. I stood in the living room where I used to have a couch, a bookshelf, a framed photo from boot camp. All of it was gone, sold or donated when my father needed to squeeze out every last dollar for Derek's debts. The sage green paint was covered now. Someone had repainted it beige, landlord neutral. I walked through each room slowly, the kitchen where I'd learned to cook actual meals instead of MREs. The bathroom with the faucet I'd fixed myself after watching YouTube tutorials for 3 hours. The bedroom where I'd slept on a mattress on the floor for the first 6 months because I couldn't afford a frame. In the backyard, I found the tulips. Red, still blooming. Somehow, through all of it, they'd survived. I knelt in the dirt, touching the petals. My mother's favorite flower. The only thing in this house that was exactly how I'd left it. And then, for the first time since any of this started, I cried. Not from sadness, not from anger, from relief. It was over. I was home. And no one, not my father, not my brother, not anyone, could take that away from me again. I stayed in that backyard until the sun went down, watching the shadows stretch across the grass I'd mowed 100 times. Then I stood up, wiped my face, and went inside to start again. The house was empty, but it was mine, and that was enough. 3 months later, I stood at attention one last time. My honorable discharge ceremony was small. A handful of officers, a few friends from the unit, Tara with her phone out recording everything. 8 years of service reduced to a folded flag, a handshake, and a DD-214 that said I'd done my duty. I didn't regret a single day. The transition back to civilian life was harder than I expected. 8 years of structure, routine, purpose, suddenly replaced by silence. No 0500 wake-up calls, no formations, no one telling me where to be and when. But I had a plan. The GI Bill covered tuition. I enrolled at Coastal Carolina Community College Criminal Justice Program, 2-year degree, with the option to transfer to a 4-year university afterward. Why criminal justice? Because I understood what injustice felt like. Because I'd seen the system work. Slowly, painfully, but eventually. Because I wanted to be part of making it work faster for people who didn't have military lawyers on their side. I furnished the house slowly. Secondhand couch from a veterans assistance center, kitchen table from a garage sale, the framed boot camp photo I ordered reprinted and hung back in its place on the living room wall. Tara visited on weekends. We'd sit on the porch, drinking beer, watching the neighborhood settle into evening. "You doing okay?" she asked once. "I think so." "You talk to your dad?" "No." "Your brother?" "Definitely no." She nodded, didn't push. "You know what I've learned?" I said. "Family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the people who show up when everything falls apart." She clinked her bottle against mine. "Then I guess I'm family." "You always were." The tulips bloomed again that spring, red as ever, so that's my story. It's not pretty. It's not the kind of family reunion anyone dreams of. But it's real. And if it helps even one person realize they deserve better, then every sleepless night was worth it. Here's what I learned. Not every family is safe. Not every parent deserves forgiveness. Not every sibling is worth saving. Blood doesn't give anyone the right to betray you. And walking away isn't abandonment. Sometimes it's survival. I used to believe that family meant unconditional loyalty. That no matter what my father did, no matter what Derek cost me, I owed them something just because we shared DNA. I don't believe that anymore. What I believe now is this: you owe people what they earn. Respect is earned, trust is earned, loyalty is earned, and if someone takes from you your money, your home, your peace of mind, you have every right to take it back. I didn't destroy my family. My father and brother destroyed it long before I came home. All I did was refuse to be buried in the rubble. If you're watching this, and you've been where I was, manipulated, stolen from, gaslit into thinking it was your fault, know that you're not alone, and you don't have to stay quiet. Document everything. Know your rights. Find allies who believe you. And when the time comes, when you're standing on that porch and they're laughing at you, calling you homeless, smile back, because the truth always comes out, and the truth is your weapon. My name is Ingrid Myers. I'm a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I served my country for 8 years, and this is my house. If you're watching this, please subscribe and share with someone who needs to hear that standing up for yourself is always worth it. Check out the links in the description for more stories like mine. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And remember, your story matters too. That's my story. If this resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done in my situation? I read every single comment, and honestly, your words keep me going. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Ingrid Myers, and I'll see you in the next one.